Greetings, folks. Wake up, South Africa. You are listening to the Coffee Conversation, and this is Apiwe, the other side of the story. Dean.
Yes, we have a point to pick up, and white privilege. My question, following on from the previous session that we had, is do black people actually want some of the good stuff that white people enjoy in our privilege? And we were touching on the fact that many black people who start achieving don't actually acquire a better life. What they do is they remain in the place that they are. So my question seriously is, do some black people not want the privilege? They just don't want white people to have it?
I think your question touches again on something else now that is cultural again, because black people want to remain black. They don't want to become white. And the biggest mistake we can make really is to try and convert a black person into a white person because of the privilege. As a condition now, if you want the privilege, you must be white and behave white, live where the whites live. So we have to, again, the privilege now is busy. We are busy talking about the things, good things that white people have. We have black people in the townships who don't lack food. We do have black people in the townships who are actually well off, as it were. They do have money. And you can think of taxi drivers, for instance, and taxi owners, to be exact. Taxi owners, they don't necessarily want to move out of the township. They rather want to build their homes in the township. And so there is that side of the story where you have to be honest about it, that some people are pointing at white people are enjoying, at what white people are enjoying, with no interest of really having it. But maybe there is a calculation there of the amounts of money that white people may be possibly having. I don't know. I'm just going through this.
Is it just resentment? Is it just a resentment aspect? And when somebody does well, others who don't do well might resent that person. Now, that's like a biblical concept of covetousness. It's one of the 10 commandments. Don't covet what other people have. So there's an element then, even of the accusation of white privilege. And let's bring just at the accusation point, because I want to destroy the accusation side of it, is that it's not that they want what white people have, that they feel cheated because they don't have what white people have. The accusation is, you've just got privilege. But I don't even want what you've got. I just don't want you to have what you've got.
I think then it's more about the measurement of the effort that you put in getting what you get, compared to the effort that a black person would have to put in.
Okay. Let's examine that effort. All right. So one of the things that we spoke to a guy yesterday about is how him and his mom and dad interact with each other, with the children. His dad says to him, and they're white, and he's got money. I don't know how much money, but he has some. He says to the child, I'm not just going to give you. You need to contribute. I'm not just going to send you on this holiday. You need to participate. You need to learn how to work, and I'll even show you how. Now, that breeds competence. And one of the things that does happen in the Western culture, that doesn't happen, I see prolifically in the African culture, is that the Western focus is the children. The children are the most relevant. So what you will find is that we have very few kids in orphanages. Where we lack tremendously is our old people are neglected. So all of our children are in old age homes.
But I want you to focus on that. What about that guy who's taught by his father?
Okay, so the parents put a lot of effort and energy into the children in terms of equipping them to be able to do stuff well and achieve stuff well. There's a lot of focus on the children. So those children, from the age of 2, 3, 4, they start being given toys that, and when I say toys, they're not necessarily expensive toys. I remember opening up the boot of the car, and there were all these things in the car, and my son went, and he was stumbling along because he could barely, picked up the tennis ball. And then he played with the tennis ball. And the tennis ball, out of all these toys, was an old, moldy, dog slobbered on tennis ball, but that's what he loved, and he played with it. And then he played with Lego. And all of these things teach the mind to interact with mathematics, with shapes, with sizes. And there's an education that's imparted to white European, let's say, children, more so than what I see with the black families.
want
So
to-
the European mindset is looking now to go forward, where in the black culture there's a lot of, we consider the ancestors, the elders are
I want to
relevant, the
interject
children
here.
aren't.
I want to interject that with this, not to say it's wrong. Maybe it's something that should be aspired to, the one of present fathers.
Okay.
Fathers who are actually imparting something into their children. But that's again another privilege that white people do have, is that their children grow up looking at their father mostly, knowing that their father is here. But with the black families, mostly the father is away, taken away by the machinery of industry. He has to go out and find a job somewhere. That's again another element of privilege there, that fathers cannot afford to be at home, because whatever games they could play, they won't be fun without the lights, without electricity, without the food. Whatever games that they can play, there is no way they can enjoy those games without stomachs that are filled, backs that are covered. So present fathers are present because they can be present.
Exactly. And there's a very relevant point that you're making. There are the elements of the fathers, and that was perpetuated in the previous regime, where it was almost promoted deliberately to separate the black families, because they understood the power of a family together. And in separating the fathers from the children, you weaken that family, that structure, that community, that society. And that was deliberately done. It was deliberately done. I don't know if it was deliberately done, but it had a very deliberate outcome and action. And we certainly, in those days, I don't see any protests from
And
the
it
government and
weakened
the
the
regime.
black
And it did. It weakened the
families.
black. So that is the one side of the story. The other side of the story is the single mothers are teenagers. Most of them today. It's not even that they married and the husband isn't there. It's that they're teenagers, they don't finish school. Or they're young ladies, they don't further their studies. And they don't have a child with one father. They have a child with multiple fathers. And that's something which has now been encultured into the society, not because they're black, but because of the situation that they were pressed in.
It has been
And
cultivated.
it has been cultivated and has become part of the culture, which is not because they're black, it's because of, there's a lot to blame on media and social media and the opening of pornography, the promoting of, and the glorifying of single motherhood. We must glorify single mothers because they got a damn hard life, but why do we glorify single motherhood? Every music video, I can't watch music videos, it's pornography. I tell my children, there's no ways in hell we're going to watch things like MTV and stuff. I haven't seen that. I don't even know if MTV still has that stuff. But in all the music videos, in every single TV, the idea of sex freely and willingly is promoted as an ideal. And these young children don't have the support from a two-parent family to do it. Yet there is power within their own hands to make good decisions. And I don't want to say that they're the only ones who are responsible. I think if we can put the message out that it is damning to you to have a child outside of wedlock, you are going to suffer tremendously. I said to my children, I told the story earlier, we're sitting in the car. I said, I'm nearly 50 years old. Mark, you're 17. Shayla, you're 15. I know that you don't want to be sexually active, or I hope so, but know this. If something happens that, Shayla, you come home and you say, Daddy, I'm pregnant, I'm going to go, wonderful. I'm going to be a grandfather. Mark, you tell me that you've made a girl pregnant. I'm going to go, oh, okay, great. I'm a grandfather. I don't need to punish you, because what you have done and the outcome is going to punish you. Shayla, you're not going to finish school. You're not going to be able to study, because I'm not the father of this child, and I'm never going to be. You are the mother, and whoever you're with, hopefully he's the father. Mark, the same thing. I'm the grandfather. I get this luxury as the grandfather. Oh, the baby's so cute. Oh, it's so lovely. Shayla, just shat itself. Yours. That's the grandfather's privilege. I'm not going to be the fathers to this children. I don't have to punish you. The outcome of your actions is going to destroy the path that you wanted to
Are you
take.
telling this story to say the outcome of the actions of the black children is punishing them?
The outcomes of the action of the people who get involved with having children before they're married, black or white, is punishing them.
But we are talking about white privilege
Sure, but
and black underprivilege.
Sure, but the whites who do it suffer the same. That's why the white community, poor community, has increased its single motherhood.
But there is less of that in white communities.
Yes.
And there is more of that in black communities.
Yes.
Could it be that it's because, again, it's not well afforded by, I was coming from work the other day and I'm walking. I walked past a swimming pool there was a tournament or whatever, sports event, and kids were swimming and all that. But the parents, lots of white parents were there because it was a lot of white kids that were there.
Correct.
And I thought about that. I've never seen that in the black community. I've never seen that in the black community, that a father and a mother, they are there. They can afford to go and watch their children play. They do not have that privilege. Again, I will say that is a privilege.
Okay, it is a
to
privilege.
be able to be present when your child is playing. That instills some self-esteem there. You are able to impart things there because you are present. And your children, they come out better because you were there to impart something spiritual, if you will, wisdom. Black parents are not there.
Is it purely because they don't have the money to be there?
It's mostly, I can tell you, it's mostly because they are at work. It's because they are at work, they are working, they don't have a company. They don't own a company where you can say, I'm going to take a break at this specific time. Because matches are often lunch, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and that guy is only going to knock off at 5 o'clock in the evening. The match is gone past. And again, that's by the way.
But are you then assuming that every single one of the white parents that there owns a company and they're free to just get off? I mean, how many companies are there? There's far too many white people working.
I'm talking about the privilege here of the ability of raising children, what you can afford. What you can afford. In most black families, the mother and the father, they are working. If it's in the setup or a town and all that, and they are both working. I'm not sure if white people can afford to have a housewife more than black people. I'm not sure of that. I haven't done any study to that
I would
effect.
assume that anybody with money, black or white, would be more affordable. That's a place of privilege regardless of color. I want to stop you for a second and just ask, is it potentially that because the white people regard their children as more important, they make the time for that? Whereas in general, black people regard their elders and their mothers and fathers, when there are certainly elders and fathers in the village, more important than the children. Is that potentially a role as well? Because from my experience in the understanding of the culture of the black people, the children are largely set aside in relevance compared to in the white communities or the European communities that have the main focus is the children. We give up our lives for our children.
I mean,
is that possibly a role as well?
I must admit that I'm hesitant to admit that, but it definitely seems so. It definitely seems so, obviously.
And I'm not saying that that's the only reason.
It definitely seems so, but obviously in my family, I'm trying to undo that. I see that. That's why you see a lot of black kids running around in the township unattended and unwashed even. So in the spirit of honesty and not just throwing blame, there is responsibility here called for. Because black parents mostly are absent while they could be present. You see this in taverns. You see fathers parking their cars in front of taverns and you wonder, where is the family? This man has got a family somewhere and yet he's not at home at night. So there is a truth about the black immorality that is perpetuating some of the black ills. That is a reality.
I want to qualify that as well, because focusing on the ancestors and the old people has value. It's where a lot of the white people lose value. It's not about which one's right and which one's wrong. It's perhaps also about what do you want to achieve. So in my family, the investment is always in the children because they are the future. Now, whether that's right or wrong, what do we want to achieve? And the investment in your family seems to be similar, but in many of the black families, they invest in the old people. Massive money on funerals, all that type of stuff, where we spend massive money on childbirth. Your orphans are in the orphanages, ours are in the old age homes. We don't care as much for our old people, and we suffer because of that. We don't learn even from the wisdom of our elders. So I don't even know if it's about right or wrong, but choosing one of those paths is going to create a separate and different income. So I want to just bring that to the point of saying that some of the privilege that I enjoy is not because I'm white. It's some of the privileges, not because I'm white. It's because my mom and dad were determined. My brother was born and mom fell pregnant before she was married. They took a stance and said, okay, we're going to get married. We're going to do it that way. And because of that, he and I had a mom and a dad who loved us. They didn't love each other that much sometimes, but they certainly loved us and gave us stability. That's a choice that they made. It's a choice that anybody can make. If we look at the colored communities who were also disadvantaged previously, I find a lot of the colored communities have got a very strong have mom and dad ethic, and I find a lot of colored people seem to be moving through the ranks because there's the support of two and enjoying similar privileges as to what white people, although maybe not the same privilege as when I walk into a door. They treat me like with a reputation of a white person being decent and you walking through the door.
I wonder how long does it take to program a person to get them to be in a certain way. I wonder if that's even a possibility that a person could be programmed. Because now we are talking about something that is cultural. Your focus being children. Our focus.
I don't know. Maybe we should just wear our mask because it's really dangerous not to. And let me drive it while I'm in my car when there's nobody here, like wearing a condom in bed when I'm alone. But we can be programmed.
Din.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist, Apiwe. We can be programmed.
The programming, you see, now you're admitting that, and I love that because, you know, we've had crazy things. There are crazy black politicians who have said these cold fronts were brought into Africa by the arrival of Europeans. We didn't have these climate changes. So I'm not one of those who will claim that
England brought its weather.
England brought this weather. I'm not one who's going to say that, but surely the impact, and at the risk of now appearing as though I'm trying to invoke history, the apartheid and its systems and whatever it has done, the damage that it has done to black people runs deep.
Yeah.
It runs deeper than just having and not having. It goes beyond the material. It goes to the behavior. It goes to the self-esteem. It goes to the values that a person can even think they can impart upon someone because of who they were told that they were. And the privilege of whites that we have right now, they were told from a very young age how much everything is possible for them. They were taught at a very young age how to dream, that the world is under your feet. While we, on the other side, black people, we tell our children what they can achieve with the boundaries because of the history that we know based on our realities.
And the reality is that the world being under our feet, we placed you under our feet too.
With that world being subhuman.
Yes, and that was conditioning. So we conditioned, the apartheid regime, the white people at the time, I in that time would have been part of it, absolutely, to be part of the conditioning to form the cultivated state of the mindset of black people today. How can I now begrudge it you? What we can then do, because your question was, can we reprogram? I think it's the best thing we should do. And that's going to require, here's where I like the accusation of white privilege. Here's not the accusation, the argument of white privilege. I don't think privilege is the problem. I think abuse of privilege is the problem. If I walk into a place and a guy assumes I know more than you because I'm white, I can take that on and then try and step on you to get ahead, or I can just relate to you and we move in together as we've done. Or if I'm the person on the other side of the fence and I see a black person coming and I prejudice you just because you're black, I'm reinforcing the old conditioning. What I can do instead is go, human, black and white, red blood. You are just as good as I am. You are just as evil as I am. We both have the same capacity.
I'm tempted to come in.
Because we're human. Carry on.
I'm tempted to come in because you are touching on something that I wanted to encourage you with. And that is how to enjoy your white privilege. How to enjoy your white privilege. Not feel guilty about your white privilege, but enjoy it in that you have a lot to offer. Your white privilege shouldn't be spoken of as a reason and an excuse to silence you, but as a realization that you have a lot to offer. You can speak against injustice, against black people where you see it. You can speak against injustice wherever without choosing whether this is black or this is white. But you can use your white privilege to empower and teach some of the black people that you can reach, that are within your reach, that, hey, this is how I did it. This is what I did. This is how you can do it. What you don't know, you can learn. I once didn't know this and I learned it. As a white person, we have a lot to learn from you, because indeed you have tremendous privilege that we want.
And from a black person, we have tremendous amount to learn from you. Yes, I think if people with privilege, and many whites have privilege, if we can offer to those others a hand up without lording it over them, because the temptation might be to go, oh, let me help you, I know better. The white supremacy mindset needs to be cautioned.
Become the principal.
But instead of going, I'm not better than you, I'm just better off, but I want to help you, show you how to get you, not a hand out, but a hand up, I think is the reconditioning. Walking down the street, and I make a point of when I see people, black or white or Indian or whatever it might be, I smile at them. Because a smile is a conditioning. I don't walk to the other side of the road unless I deliberately feel threatened. And sometimes there's not only black and Indians and coloreds who make me feel threatened, sometimes there's whites. Then I'll leave. But otherwise, I'll try and engage and acknowledge that you are human. I think one of the big things that we took from black people is we reduced them to less than human. It's the first thing that I think we need to reinstate, is that we are all human, whether you are black, whether you are white. We both have red blood.
There is no heaven for blacks and a heaven for whites.
No, God's not going to go and say, okay, Pee-wee, you go there with the black guys, okay, because I got an English accent with a bit of a squeak, because that's how I roll. And the white guys, no, it's not going to happen like that. He's going to say, children, come in. That's it. And if we can start there in the conditioning and then add to that and go, here's something. 20% of South Africa enjoys privilege, black and white. 80% doesn't. That 80% doesn't know this world. Now, this 20%, certainly in the white, we don't know that world either. What we've got to decide as a country is, do we want to include these people in this world? Or do we want to, are we going to allow that this hateful rhetoric justifiably reduces us all to this world? Which is the better outcome?
The better is that we all go up.
We all go up. That's the opportunity that lies
there. We all go up. And the best thing you can do is what you told me that you did yesterday. When you said you listened to the guy. You listened to the guy. When he had something to say to you, you gave him that dignity, that speak, I'm listening. And that's what we can offer each other. Listen to each other.
I think unless those of us who have privilege don't do that, we are guilty of the accusation of, if we white privilege. Then we are guilty. It's to not abuse the privileges that we have, but to try and welcome others to the good things that we do enjoy. Acknowledging the fact that sometimes we ourselves perpetrate white privilege by denying. The story of you phoning and them not opening the door for you to even go and look at the place. There's very good reasons for them, but we've got to break them into becoming bad reasons. We've got to resolve the reputation. White people, you've got a very good reputation in some ways and awful in others. Black people, awesome reputation in one area and awful in others. It's going to take a reconditioning on both sides to change the reputation so that we can engage with each other and try and bring more people into privilege, because privilege is actually a good thing.
Privilege is a good thing, but it must be enjoyed by everybody. That's what we just want to say.
We just mustn't abuse it.
Aha.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present this. I hope we made some sense. My name is Dean Haystack, and I am just a guy who gives it air.
And this is Apiwe Nqemvu, the other side of the story.